After 14 years of selling on Amazon and thousands of orders later, and actually after a decade of teaching people how to go from complete scratch to getting set up and selling on the platform, I've learned a thing or two. And in this video, I'm going to share with you things that nobody else is talking about that you absolutely need to know before you start selling on Amazon. One thing that a lot of people get wrong is they don't pick the right method of selling on Amazon that suits who they are, what their situation is, and so much more. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're starting out and you'd like to sell on Amazon because you'd like to maybe have a part-time income or something like that. You're working in a job and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd love to sell my own branded stuff on Amazon, for instance. Well, if you're in a situation where you just don't have a big budget, you maybe have $1,000, $2,000, pounds, euro, whatever currency you work in, or something like that while you're working in your job, the reality is that getting into private label selling or selling your own branded stuff on Amazon is not going to be a good idea for you because you just don't have a big enough budget yet to launch a business like that. So in that case, if you were in that situation, you would be better off looking at something like arbitrage, or what we call reselling, whereby you go to retail stores online or offline, but typically online we teach. You buy stuff at a discount. They're going to be already well-known brands like Lego, Disney, whatever, and you then resell those on Amazon at their full price. You might buy them at a discount of 30% or more from their typical retail price and then make the difference. You could also get into something like wholesale, whereby you're ordering already well-known brands again, like the Legos and the Disney and all that, but this time you're going to a wholesale distributor and you're buying directly from the distributor and selling on Amazon. And in that case, you might place an order of $250 to $1,000 to get something like that up and running. So those two methods will be a lot more realistic for that person if they had a low budget, didn't want to take big risk, and let's face it, they didn't have all the time in the world either. Now on the other side, if you're in a situation where maybe you're a professional, a solicitor, something like that, or a lawyer, right? You have a bigger budget because you're making more money and you want to slash them in a time, you can take that money and you can go into a model like private label selling because you just have a bigger budget. So choosing the right method based upon your circumstances is really important. Now added to this is the idea of cash. We need cash to start a business where we sell products on Amazon. Why? Because we are buying inventory from a retail store, from a wholesale distributor, or from a supplier in China. We must have money. Now that's just to get launched. But as we start to grow the business, I'm here to tell you something. You're going to want to add more cash into the business continually. It's a big mistake I've seen beginners make where they come in and they say to themselves, well, or they say to us even, I have $2,000 to launch and grow my business. But the reality is no business is ever just launched with $2,000 and nothing else is added in. As you start to get success in whatever model you're focusing on Amazon, you're going to put in more money over time. But here's the thing, you're not going to mind putting that money in. Why? Because you will have already had some level of success. You've made some sales, you've made some profits, you know the thing that you're focusing on actually works. Therefore, you become actually excited about taking cash and putting it into the business because now you know every time you make a sale, you're going to get a return on that investment, whereby it could be 30%, it could be 50%, it could be 100%, depending on the model that you're focusing on. So if you grow your money by 30% or 20% or 50% or whatever, every time you make a sale, wouldn't you add more money into something like that? Of course you would. And the reality is that businesses, in order to grow and scale, require more capital because you're going to want to buy more products from more suppliers over time so that you can grow the business. At the end of the day, an Amazon-based business comes down to products and suppliers, no matter what model that you're focusing on. And if it was, say, arbitrage, okay, it may not be suppliers, you might be thinking more like product sources, for example. And in order to make more money, we need more products to be able to make more money. And to have more products, we need to add in more cash. Now we get into something that has a lot of debate, and that is learning how to sell on Amazon. Look, I run a company called Marketplace Superheroes, right? We teach people all three methods of selling on Amazon. And you might say, well, Stephen, if you're going to tell me go buy a course, you would say that because you sell programs. And okay, fair enough, I do have a bias because of that, but I'm here to tell you something. The only reason that I'm sitting here today is because 14 years ago when I started, I had a mentor. I had somebody who already had figured out how this works, and that person was prepared to show me how to do it. And all I did was follow that person's initial model to get myself up and running. Now, yes, you could go to YouTube. Hey, we're on YouTube right now, right? You could go there and try and piece it all together. And certainly on our channel, we have lots of different videos on all aspects of selling on Amazon, but it just takes a long time, right? It takes a long time to piece together all these different ideas into a method. So what you're better doing is taking some of your money. It could be $2,000, whatever it is in your own currency, right? You might think that's a lot of money. Here's what I would recommend you do. Divide 365 into that number, and that's going to give you the daily amount of money you're investing in order to learn somebody else's system. I mean, $2,000 is $5.47 per day over 365 days. That's nothing when you consider if you're learning from the right person as well, obviously, you're getting possibly a decade of experience or more, or millions of dollars, euro, pounds, whatever currency they're operating in. You're getting access to all of that for $5.47 per day. So investing in a program where it's all brought together makes sense. Now, I'm also here to tell you something else. I've been doing this a long time. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they buy information. I know you're saying, why? You just said buy a course. But you see, here's the thing. Nowadays, as I'm speaking to you, it takes more than just a course for you to be successful. You're going to need software. You're going to need a community where you can ask questions. You're going to need help and support, right? Because you're not always going to know what to do. A course is fine, but at the end of the day, you're trying to take that information and apply it to yourself and your business and your situation. And that can be challenging. You have no feedback. So you need a way to get feedback. You're going to need software. You're going to need a lot of other pieces. So the best thing you can do is look for places where they're putting together a package for you. If it's us, great. If it's somebody else, that's fine also. But understand you're going to need more than just information. And now added to this, whenever you find the right person who has the right program, the right package, whatever, do what they tell you. Don't go around trying to find loads of other information that contradicts what that person is saying. That's the biggest thing that's going to hold you back, because here's the reality. There's lots of different ways to be successful in anything, including Amazon, even though you might be following a specific business model. For example, someone who's doing wholesale, they might have a certain wrinkle, a certain way they've done wholesale that works for them. Another person is doing wholesale as well, and they just do it slightly differently, but they both had a lot of success. Is one person right, one person wrong? Not really. They're both succeeding. They're both doing well. So for you, if you were trying to listen to all these different voices, you're just going to get really confused. So whoever you find and you trust, do exactly what they tell you. Even whenever you think to yourself, this does not sound correct, still do what they tell you, because it's quite likely, number one, it's the right thing to do. And number two, the reason you think it's wrong is because you just don't have the experience yet. All right, so the next thing that's really important is when selling on Amazon, adding in more income streams over time, more ways of doing it is a really smart strategy. So let's just say, for example, you start out doing arbitrage, as we call it, reselling. You're buying stuff from retailers, you're reselling it on Amazon for more than what you paid for it. Great. That will get you so far. And certainly you can outsource that over time with virtual assistants. They can go and find more opportunities for you. They can buy stuff for you and help get it into stock. That's all awesome and great. But there are other things you can do in order to speed up the growth of your Amazon business that can be less labor intensive. A good example would be wholesale. It's not that it's better, it's just another way to grow that Amazon account and that Amazon business. And let's face it, when you're doing wholesale, you're going to be able to reorder products from a supplier, whereas you're not going to be able to do that as easily with something like reselling. Why? Because you're buying from a retailer, and you can only buy so many because you're buying from a retailer. So as you go through this whole experience, I recommend adding in other ways to sell on Amazon, because it's going to help protect you. It's also going to help you make more money. And some of these other opportunities, while they have a bit more risk, they also have more reward on the other side. Because the next thing and the ultimate place to go is where you start your own brand of products on Amazon. And that will involve ordering from China, most likely. That will involve getting branding created. That will involve ordering hundreds of units of a single item in order to get it into stock. And some people will say, well, it's too risky, it's not good. And that's just not true, because yes, it is riskier, but many people, myself included, have made that business model work really, really well over the years. And that business model continues to make a lot of people a lot of money. But if you're starting out and you're in a situation where you got a low budget and you don't have a big desire for risk and stuff like that, obviously private label at that moment in time it does seem too risky. But as you start to make more money, let's say you've got a business on Amazon, between reselling and wholesale, you're bringing in $50,000 a month in revenue, right? Maybe you're profiting $6,000 to $10,000, something like that, right? Well, it will not feel as risky now investing in a private label brand at that moment in time, because you're up and running and you're making money. So moving up over time makes complete sense. It's the natural order of things, and getting to a place in time where you can have your own private label brand is exactly where you want to be. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor real quick, hit that like button. It helps get this video in front of other people who maybe are just like you and want to learn more about this topic. We've talked about a lot already. Now we're going to get into some very important stuff that will not seem sexy. I'm here to warn you. And here's one of them. Set up a company earlier on. I started my Amazon journey many years ago, back in 2010, and I was what we call a sole proprietor. I had my own company in my own name. The business was me, I was the business. I don't recommend you do that, although some people do it when they start out. And the reason to do it when they start out is because it's seen to be faster, it's cheaper to set up and all of that, and that's fine. But as soon as you possibly can, move to setting up a company. And if you can launch by setting up a company, I highly recommend it. Why? Number one, you're gonna protect yourself and your assets. The reality is, if you sell something and it burns a house down or whatever, God forbid, there's gonna become a lot of questions. Is it your company that's liable? Is it somebody else's? If it's your own private label brand, is it you that's at fault? Is it the supplier over in China? Are you gonna be able to sue that supplier? Like, all these different questions start to come up, right? And that's why, of course, when it comes to private label selling, we have a lot of different rules of what we will sell and what we won't sell. And often things that are battery powered or electrical, we don't sell for those very reasons. That being said though, no matter what you're doing, you wanna protect yourself. You wanna protect your personal assets. And having a company is one of the best ways to do that, because you may not know this, or maybe you do, but a company in the eyes of the law is actually an entity. It's a real living, breathing thing, which can seem like a really hard thing to understand. Like, how can something that's not physical actually be like considered almost like a person? But that's what a company is, and it protects you. You have what we call limited liability, which also means whatever you put into that business, that is the limit of your risk. In other words, let's just say, and again, we hope this never happens, the company doesn't work out, it goes into debt or something like that, which again, hopefully it will never happen. But if you have a limited company, well, whatever was put into that business, that's what's at risk. Whereas if you were a sole proprietor or a sole trader, well, you're at risk, because the business is you and you are the business. Your house, your assets, all those things would be used to sell back some of that debt. Now again, I'm not here to give financial advice. I'm here to try to just give you practical advice from an entrepreneur to an aspiring entrepreneur. And that's one of my biggest ones for you. So if we have a company, what do we also need? A really good accountant. How do you know what's a good accountant? It can be very difficult to know, actually, but one of the biggest things that I look out for is that they have a clear understanding of a few things. Number one, tax. They understand tax. Maybe they're not a tax expert, but they get it. They understand a good bit about it. That's number one. Two, they understand entrepreneurs. They get that you're going to be crazy. You're going to do things that they would never do, and they're going to help protect you as much as they possibly can by just displaying as well that they understand how an entrepreneur works. That's another thing that I look out for. And the other thing is that they're just like a good person. They do care about your business in some way. Okay, maybe they don't care about your business as much as their own, that's normal, but they have a caring attitude. They want to look after you. They're happy to speak to you whenever you have an issue. If you send them an email, you'll get a response. There's some of the basic things that I look out for. Anything other than that, getting into actual accounting and stuff like that, it's beyond the scope of today's video. And really, when you're starting out, that's not something you're going to require. But them understanding tax, understanding the business that you're in, understanding that you're an entrepreneur, they are critical. And really, that one about understanding the business that you're in is massive, because if they don't understand you as an Amazon seller and what you're doing, they can make mistakes in your end of year accounts where you can end up paying more tax. Ask me how I know. I've done this before. I had an accountant who just didn't understand what I was doing. He was a very traditional one. He was located in a small town in Northern Ireland. He didn't understand what we were trying to do. So that's what you're looking for, e-commerce accountants, stuff like that. Use the 30-30-30 method as you grow your business. What do I mean? So when you have your profit over time, you're gonna wanna take 30% of that, and that's what you're gonna wanna take as your own income. right? Ideally. 30% of it, you're gonna wanna leave in the business for investing. And 30% of it, you're going to want to leave aside for taxes and stuff like that. Now, that's a very basic, simplified way of looking at things, but it's a really good way to do it. Now, depending on what country you live in, that might change. So, for instance, here in Ireland, we have a lower corporate tax rate than in the UK, for example. So as a result of that, I might leave a little bit less money in my tax account of my business. Why? Because I'm not going to have to pay as much. That being said, you starting out, don't become obsessed with tax early on. I see a lot of people doing that. It's not something to really worry about for a while. Why? Because think about why you pay tax. You pay tax when your company is profitable. That's how any corporate tax is calculated. Now you might say, well, Stephen, like there's sales tax and VAT depending on where I live, and they're taken at source. So Amazon will often collect those amounts of money on your behalf and remit them to the appropriate tax authority. I'm talking more about the corporate level tax that everybody's afraid of, and really there's nothing to be afraid of. As I say, if you're making no money, you're not going to pay any tax. But if you have something like the 30-30-30 rule, you're going to put yourself in the right position where you personally are not going to pay an insane amount of money in personal tax. The company's going to have enough money to pay for different bills and stuff like that. And also there's going to be 30% there so the company can actually grow. But a linked point, let's move on to the next one, is this. In your first year of business, your first 12 months of trading, I recommend you don't take any money out of the business at all. Leave it all in there. You want the business to be able to grow to a place in time where it's making enough money on a monthly basis, where it has enough money to actually pay you. Here's a little bit of a news flash, right? Businesses take time to be able to pay the founder money. And that goes for any type of business out there. I mean, I've started all kinds of different companies, even freight businesses over the time. And every single business, it just takes time for it to get profitable enough and enough momentum where there's enough money to pay you running the business. So if you're doing this and you're thinking to yourself, well, in my first 3 months, I'm gonna be making 10 grand a month every month. By the way, that's how I started out. It's exactly what I used to say. My first mentor said to me, how are you going to do that? Like, what products are you selling? Where is there going to be the money for you to take it from your business? And you might be a little bit disappointed by that thought and that idea, but don't be. The reason you're disappointed is just a lack of experience. You just didn't know before getting into this, hey, it takes time to make enough money so I can pay myself in my business. It's not like having a job, right? You work in your job and in your first month you're getting paid, or maybe even your first week you're getting paid, depending on the job that you're actually doing. This is different. This is setting up something, a front-loaded business, buying products, getting them into stock, selling them, and then over time getting paid from the work that you initially did. It takes time. This is a big one, and one that beginners really don't understand right away, which is totally fine. And that is buy time before you take cash. So we just talked about the whole 30-30-30 method and all that, won't go over it again. But as you grow, the first investment you're gonna wanna make is buying somebody else's time. Because think about it, let's say you're working in a job right now and you have 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week you can put into your business. What would happen if you could master a business, let's say arbitrage, you really understood how I find products, how I get them into stock and all of that, so you have like a method and a system that works for you. What would happen if you took somebody else, you found a way to be able to pay where they could do that for 40 hours a week? So all of a sudden now, you've doubled, technically, the amount of time that's going into that part of the business. Therefore, you should be able to double your results at a minimum. Because in that 20 hours a week, not only were you doing research and all, you were doing all the other parts of the business as well, including over time, getting the books together so that you can get your accounting done and all of that. So the sooner you can take the big important parts of your business that are very repeatable, you can pay somebody some money to take that over, the better. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, but I live in the US or whatever. It's gonna cost me thousands of dollars a month to do that. And for things like I'm talking about, we can go to other economies out there with amazing people, like the Philippines, for example, where there are so many incredible people that will follow your processes, that are more than happy to do a great job for you, and it will not cost you thousands of dollars a month. What I also recommend, by the way, now we're talking about this, pay those people more than they ask for. They're not going to ask you for a whole lot. Just pay them a little bit more and they're going to be really happy with you because you respect them, you're giving them a little more than they asked for, and they're going to do a really phenomenal job for you as well. I'm not saying give them double, by the way, but just give them a bit extra. If they ask for $500 a month, give them $600 a month. Now, I know right now you may not have $600 to pay somebody over there. That's all right. That's where we want to get the business up and running. We leave cash in the business like we talked about. And when the time is right, we have a bit of a budget where we can put somebody in place. And remember, here's the thing. They're never going to be a cost if you put them into the right position, because they're just going to keep finding you more opportunities. And you know you'll make 30%, 50%, whatever the case may be, return on every sale that you make. So you'll grow your money every sale you make. That person is no longer a cost anymore. They're an investment that's actually going to multiply your original money. The final point here today is long-term thinking and patience. I know there are two things you may not want to consider right now, because I'm not a very patient person either. I want things to happen quickly. I want them to happen overnight as well. And that's normal when you're an aspiring entrepreneur, or you want more from life. You don't have the patience of somebody else, and that's fine. What's not fine is throwing all of that out the window and being like, I have to make 10 grand next month or I'm going to throw this whole thing out the window. No. Also, if you have failures and mistakes that you're going to make, which are going to happen, it's only ever a failure when you just give up. That's a cliche, by the way, but all cliches are true. They're a cliche for a reason. So here's the flip of that. When something goes wrong, which it will, learn from that mistake and then never do it again. That's a simple thing. But have that long-term planning, that long-term vision where you say to yourself, you want to know something? This Amazon business, I'm going to give myself 2 years to get it up and running, to get it to a place where it can make me a part-time income. For instance, now if you have a bigger capital investment you can put up front, maybe you'll take that down to a year. But what I don't want to see from you or anybody else watching this video is, I'm going to have it next month. If it's not working next month, then I give up. Because businesses, they take time. There'll be other people here on YouTube who will tell you otherwise, but a business like this, it doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes at least a year, probably more like 18 months to get it to a place where it's really rocking and really rolling. Because think about it, you're starting from complete scratch. You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea how all this stuff works. So you have to learn that first. Then you got to learn how to put it into practice. Then you got to learn the patience as well, right? And you also have to learn a lot of other skills like outsourcing and everything else that we talked about. So I hope you have patience. I hope you put yourself in a position where you give yourself 18 months or 2 years to get this to a place where it's really making you enough money. And also I hope you really enjoyed this video. And if you did, we have lots more videos on the channel as well that I highly recommend you watch. This one right here will be a perfect one to watch right now. And just want to say thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.